Wish Potawatomi, Lakota Ray, Lake Superior, Ojibwe, and Dow. Gun Lake Potawatomi, a king, and Donjaba, Shakanashi Mowin Majima. My passport driver's license name is Shannon Martin, but in my language, I introduce myself in Anishinaabe Mowin, the language of my ancestors, and I'm coming to you from the Gun Lake Potawatomi territory in Middle Village, Michigan. And I'm a citizen of the Gun Lake Potawatomi on my mother's side. Her name is Sydney Martin, and I'm a descendant on my father's side of the Lakota Ray Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians in Wisconsin. And I'd like to welcome you all here to this momentous, this amazing and historic moment in our collective time together. And as we talk about history, we talk about and acknowledge all of our ancestors from generations back. And we think about their intentions. We think about the messages. We think about the songs. We think about the philosophy in their time that they wanted to send forward to us in our time. And as Indigenous peoples of this world, we understand that great connection and strong connection we have to honor their intentions. And tonight we're celebrating a way in which we can continue to do that and to take control, to take authority, and to provide that connection to our ancestral knowledge, spirituality, their material belongings that are existing today in many institutions and museums outside of our reach. But the local context project that has been birthed and has emerged for us in 2010 is now one that has ventured into the arena of giving our people more control through the technological landscape. And tonight, that's what we're celebrating. We're celebrating all of the Indigenous voices, the Indigenous communities who have helped to birth this project into being. And then as we nurture it to continue growing for righting the wrongs of the past, we are excited that we're launching the community working group, the Indigenous Community Working Group. And I'm just honored to acknowledge that I have been a part of local context traditional knowledge labels for about 7 years. So I'm grateful to be a part of this project and then continue in the capacity as the Strategic Initiatives Advisor through a Mellon Grant. So great gratitude is given to Jane and Maui, our project directors, and our principal investigators for this amazing work. But tonight we celebrate all of you, the Indigenous voices that have contributed to where we are tonight and what's going to be happening for the hub and for the project in the coming days and months as it begins to take hold and scale itself to meet the needs of Indigenous peoples throughout the world. So at this time, I'd like to offer one of our elders from Aotearoa an opportunity to begin. Always spirit-driven, spirit-led work has surrounded local context, and she will provide an opening prayer for us before we begin the official program. So I say miigwech to Anita Kire Paru for opening us with a prayer.
Tēnā tātou. Mōrena, no reira ka tuku mihi ki aku tātou I tēnei ata. Mākua no tō tātou arawhata ki tō tātou atua nei e tuku I tēnei ata. I will conduct just a little inoi and a little taku for us this morning to help us on our kaupapa kōrero. Nō reira, tēnei inoi tātou. I honore he krore he maungarongo ki runga I te whenua, whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Hamine. He ihoa tēnei mātau o punonga e whakarau I ka mai runga I tēnei hui topa nei, I runga I te kaupapa o tō tātou nei taonga tuku iho, ka tuku atu ki a koe, tō koro ai aroha ki runga I tēnā, I whai wā mai te nohotahi I wainga nui I a tātou nei, no hoki rātou e noho moho ao ki o rātou nei kāinga, rātou anō kai te mahi, wera no hoki kai whare ke, e whai wāhi nei ki te noho mai. Hei kōrero tahi, hei whakaaro tahi, hei kauhau tahi mai I tēnei kaupapa nui nei e pāneki wā tātou nei taonga tuku iho. Nau I homai a mātou nei taonga kia mātou, nā te rā tuatahi, I tō hanga nei te ao, ana ka taima ki tēnei rā, me ngā hua ka puta I nā rawa. Nō reira e te atua, nau te timatanga, I te timatanga te kupu, ko te kupu, nā te atua no taua kupu te timatanga. Nāna nei ngā mea katoa I hanga, a ka hore tētahi mea e kore te hanga o ngā mea e hanga e ia. I aia te ora, ko te ora te māramatanga mō ngā tāngata, katoa I roto I te pauri, te māramatanga e whitiana, he oi ki hai mau te pauri, kōre ki toi ngatapu, amene e te atua. Arataki nā ia mātou I tēnei rā, kia ata whai mai te ariki kia mātou, kia aroha mai tēnā ki tēnā I runga I ngā kaupapa kōrero, o tēnā me ona whakaaro. Nō reira, e te atua whakatuwhiritia mai ngā kuaho, te tika o te pono, te oro, te kaha o te māramatanga kia mātou I tēnei rā. Aba mātou koe whakamoemuti, whakakōri ki toi ngatapu. Āmine.
Āmine.
Aroha mai, all that you can hear. I'm at a beautiful place called Otara. I'm at Otara, up at one of my whānau homes, and the kiwi fruit orchard is just right on my left. So they're doing the big boom, scaring away all the beautiful manu. So aroha mai, I'm fine, I'm not getting attacked. Tēnā tātou.
Miigwech, kia ora, Anita. Miigwech for that beautiful prayer. At this time, we're going to hear from some of the voices and the communities who have been working tirelessly to advance this project to where we are this evening. So we would like to call upon those who have been asked to share their journey, to share their ideas, and to share what the spirit of local context means for them and their communities. So we're going to move to a community labels discussion where we will go all the way from Whakatoia, Aotearoa to Maine and a few places in between. So I'm going to ask the community labels participants to give a brief introduction and then talk with us and tell us how local context has been positively impacting your ability to assert your data sovereignty and your digital sovereignty over our intellectual, spiritual, and cultural heritage. We'll start with James. How about Maggie Walter?
Your call has been forwarded to an...
Yeah, Palingana. Maggie Walter here. Yes, I can start, Shannon. I'm not between Maine and Aotearoa. I'm on the other side. I'm in Lutruwita, Tasmania, Australia, in Palawa, and I'm here on the land of the Muhunina people. I'm Palawa. If you want to know why I'm so pale, have a look at our history. This is what very close to genocide looks like. So I've been part of the local context group for a while. So I've, up until recently, I was Professor of Sociology at the University of Tasmania. And within that, we developed a new course called Indigenous Life Worlds, which was about Palawa scholarship. And we wanted to move away from, well, we wanted to embed Indigenous knowledges into that course and make it all Palawa-led, Palawa-driven. And that meant moving away from the standard trope where non-Indigenous lecturers would talk about Aboriginal people, drag a bit of stuff off the internet they could find, repeat the same stuff that students have been hearing for years in their limited, tiny little bit of stuff, the same stuff again and again. But to do that, we had to bring community on board. So we had to have our community leaders be willing to be part of the course, to be proud of the course, and to approve of the course. And local context and traditional knowledge labels gave us one of the tools to make that happen. So when I went and spoke with community leaders and said, will you film a bit for this course with us? Instantly, they would always go and say, well, you know, what about, I don't want my intellectual property, or I don't want my cultural knowledge being used, you know, 10 years down the track in a course on English. So that we were able to, we are applying the traditional knowledge labels to all of the content in that course. And that means even though I've now left the University of Tasmania for another role, that material is protected, it is provenanced, the people who made it and contributed still own that knowledge, the community still owns that knowledge, and people have more than trust, and they have it written down on a piece of paper that they can guarantee that their knowledge will not be misused innocently or stupidly, which is usually the way it's done, more stupidity than anything else. So that's one example. The other example is that I'm now a commissioner with the Rook Justice Commission, which is an Aboriginal truth-telling commission in the state of Victoria in Australia. It's the first truth-telling commission in Australia, and we have very, very wide powers. We have Royal Commission powers. So for those who don't know what a Royal Commission is, we can compel the Premier to come before us and give evidence. We can compel any documents we want. But at the moment, we are setting in the Indigenous data sovereignty guidelines and protocols and processes to make sure that the stories that our community bring to us of the systemic injustices they've suffered are protected, and that we will probably be using traditional knowledge labels within that system to again make sure that those stories and knowledge are protected even after the commission finishes. So just very briefly, there's some couple of uses of how we're applying it here in Australia.
Amazing. Miigwech, Maggie. We're going to go now to James Francis, one of local context project directors. So James.
Hi, Shannon. How are you?
Who's you, James?
So the Penobscot Nation here in Maine have been involved with the TK labels for some years now. I think probably 6 or so. And we have been using Mukurtu to create a digital database, and we thought it was really important to use the TK labels on a couple of fronts. You know, one is as we negotiate with institutions that have our cultural heritage items as part of their collections, you know, it's important that part of the negotiations that we do with them, it's not just about getting digital copies of this material to put in front of Penobscot tribal members on our Mukurtu site. It's also really important to negotiate with them to try to get them to implement the labels in their systems so that we have a form of you know, a voice and an authority over those items that are in their collections. So that's kind of the one traditional way that we use TK labels. We also use them internally on our Mukatu site. We created two new TK labels when we were designing our suite. We felt that there was a TK label that we wanted to try to coax out stories from our tribal membership. So the whole point of our Mukatu site is to present items that have been away from our community a long time. And it's our hope that these items will elicit stories and enrich our community history. And so we developed what we call the Community Voice TK label. That's kind of an internally used TK label. And it really speaks to the tribal membership and asks them to share stories about particular items or articles or whatever it will be. And when also at the time when we were developing our suite of labels, we had just come out of a very tenuous situation with the American Philosophical Society around some Penobscot language materials that are housed there in Philadelphia at that library. The American Philosophical Society had written a grant to work with the University of Maine to do something with our language materials. And so when we were kind of looking through the suite of TK labels, there was really no label that worked to, protect things that are sensitive. And, there is one that's secret sacred, but that's really a label that kind of attends to NAGPRA type of items. And we wanted to try to protect our language materials that were in this institution. So we created I think it's culturally sensitive label that kind of addresses all the other stuff that would be seen as sensitive that doesn't fall under that NAGPRA definition. We've been working with institutions here in Maine, the Abbey Museum in Bar Harbor, which is going through a decolonizing and indigenizing process currently, have switched over to Mukatu also, and we are now we have received our Penobscot collections that they had, and we have a governance structure here at Penobscot called the Penobscot Tribal Rights and Resource Protection Board, and that board is currently going through that Abbey collection and assigning TK labels to those and vetting them, making sure that if it says it's a porcupine basket, that it is a porcupine basket, making sure everything is labeled properly. And then we will send on those TK label informations to the Abbey. So when they launch their Mukatu site, our voice and authority will be in that institution. Likewise, we are doing the same thing with the Hudson Museum at the University of Maine. They wrote a grant recently. We haven't heard if we got it or not, to digitize a couple of specialized collections that are on campus. And this was all kind of precipitated from a MOU that we signed with the University of Maine to really address one, that big language issue that we ran up against, but also to address the fact that they have cultural heritage items on their campus and in their system that are traditionally ours. And so we worked long and hard, the Perturb board, working with Dr. Jane Anderson at NYU to craft an MOU that was quite powerful. And you see how things get spin off from that with these grant applications and these small little projects that happen all across campus. So, you know, our journey with the TK labels has been a long one, and I find it interesting how as we progress and start to negotiate with these institutions, I always find the need for that other TK label. So when we did our TK label, we did, I think, 5 or 6 of them initially. We did, you know, kind of personalize them to our tribe. And over time, we have, I think we're up to 9, I think, somewhere around there, where we have taken on some other labels because of need. And I think that's a real benefit to that we started with this really small handful, and we're able to craft language for the others as we moved forward. I'm not sure how much, yeah.
Yeah, amazing journey, James. And we have to acknowledge the Penobscot Nation and the hard work that they've accomplished and have been willing to share and to train other tribes as an example. So we are so grateful to all of you there out in Maine for the work that you've done to advance the traditional knowledge labels and local context. And it's inspiring because it inspires other tribes, other Indigenous communities to feel confident, to customize, to use language, to use symbology, to take ownership and authority over our knowledge. So miigwech to you and to all those out at Penobscot and the other tribes in Maine and the institutions who were courageous enough to come to the table and to do this very good work, which sets an example for the entire world. So we're gonna move, yeah. So we're gonna move. We're gonna move over and hear from another community important voice who has helped to shape TK labels and local contexts. So we're gonna listen to Wasiatwin.
Yeah, Hami Dakyapi, Owas Inchanta Washte and Apet Uzapia, Waziatoi, Demie, Pejihu Dizizik Abimakoche Dechiatahawahia. Hello, my relatives. It's with a good heart that I greet all of you with a handshake. I'm Waziatoi, and I'm talking to you today from the place we call Pejihu Dizizik Abimakoche, the place where they dig for yellow medicine. And in English, that's the Upper Sioux Reservation in southwestern Minnesota. And you can see behind me, there is a Dakota Earth Lodge, and that's a virtual background. My husband and I built this Earth Lodge that you see there several years ago, and it's located on the Enemy Swim district of the Lake Traverse Reservation in South Dakota. So I'm not actually there at the moment. It's just a virtual background, but it has to do with our use of the labels. Because it became an issue for us last year. And I've worked for many years in the area of recovery of traditional knowledge, and that was primarily in an academic context. And so I always think about this issue as one of the peculiarities of colonization, when we have lost control over something that used to be so basic to all of our people, where we had protocols for how you learned information, how information was transmitted, how it was shared, and how it was denied access, to some as well. But last year, we were in the midst of a legislative struggle. The nonprofit that I've been a part of for a number of years, Makoche Kichupi, which we translate as land recovery, is a justice-based project. We use donations from settlers, primarily white settlers in Dakota homeland, to buy back some of the land that was stolen from us. And with that land, we hope to bring some of our people back to this part of our traditional territory from exile and live a sustainable existence, establish new villages rooted in commitment to culture and commitment to sustainability. So that's our big project, but we realized that the Earth Lodges, the revival or revitalization of Earth Lodge practices among our people makes a lot of sense in this context. And just so you understand, many people are familiar with the teepee, which was one of our traditional structures, but our people also had Earth Lodges for thousands of years. And the last known example of our people collectively or living in a community of Earth Lodges would have been around the Mille Lacs area of Minnesota around the 1750s. And so it's been centuries since our people have actually lived in Earth Lodges. And to my knowledge, my husband and I are the first people to live in an Earth Lodge in today's context. So we decided in these new villages that we're going to be establishing in our homeland that the Earth Lodges make a lot of sense in terms of reviving this practice. But we were bumping up against Minnesota state law, the fire codes and the building codes, because we were out of compliance. And the solution, at least in this context that we decided to pursue, was a legislative solution to seek a waiver to the building codes for Indigenous building practices as practiced by Indigenous people. So we thought it would be useful to have something, some kind of blueprints or something, some design that we could use as we were meeting with legislators and meeting with people trying to rally support for this legislative push. And we've been working with a designer, professional permaculture designer who had all the software and all the things that he could do to put on paper our vision for our site. And he said, I've got the software. He said, I could do up some, blueprints for you for your Earth Lodge. And we thought, oh, well, that would be great. That's awfully kind of you. And when we got the first blueprint back, his version of it, because all we had for our blueprints, we had drawn up the dimensions on a yellow legal pad, like one sheet, and this is our blueprint. And so he took that and he did this design, and when it came back, it had his copyright sign on there. And I thought, oh boy, okay, this is where we see the trouble starting. And so one of our governing council members, Karen Ducheneau, she said, well, my husband has been working in this area. And so thanks to Joe, he put me in contact with Jane and Maui, and they saved us. The local contact saved us in this instance, because it gave us the tools that we could use to exert our right to this information. And it wasn't that we wanted to make any money off of it, or that we wanted to be the first or anything, but we don't want anyone else profiting from it, particularly non-native designers claiming copyright. So that's an example of how it had a very real impact for us. It was very useful, and I, not having to reinvent the wheel, seeing something that was already so beautifully and thoughtfully created was very helpful. And I will say that this summer we got our legislation passed, and we're back to building Earth Lodges within our traditional territory. So I think it all helped. Wopirai Chichet. Thank you.
Nishin. Oh my goodness. That is amazing, amazing story, amazing work. Man, you folks in Minnesota are just rocking and rolling. You're taking, place names back, renaming lakes. Now you're building, your ancestral lodges, and it's all inspiring. And so happy to hear your story, and that you're protecting those beautiful constructions and engineering, because we don't want to see that as a resort somewhere around one of the lakes in Minnesota that's non-native owned. So we have to protect, always protect. And that's what this amazing project is prompting us all to do in different ways. And and through different technologies. So the last community voice, we're going to hear how local contacts and the TK labels have provided inspiration, provided a new way of looking and Indigenous ways of knowing. We're going to call upon our new friends who provided an amazing presentation about a month ago that just totally blew my mind, and I still keep thinking about it. But we're going to hear from the team at Digitech out of Whakatohea. So let's give them a welcome, Whakatohea Digitech team.
Kia ora Shannon, no reira tēnā koutou e te whānau, ko tae mai ki te whakarongo ki ngā kōrero e pāne ki tēnei kaupapa whakanui, reira tēnā koutou, aroha mai mō taku tūreititanga, ko tae kanuhia, no reira tēnā koutou. Just to introduce myself, kia ora, greetings to everybody, my name is Danny Pairuru. I'm the iwi development manager, the tribal development manager for our tribe, Whakatohea. And I have with us on our this meeting Rangi Mārie, Anita and Courtney, who are a part of our Digitech team. Thank you to our team for joining us. We are the iwi of the tribe in New Zealand, I think, that is piloting TK labels. So we were fortunate to have received some funding, some government funding to help us get this project up and running. So an acknowledgement to Jane, Dr. Jane, Maui as well. Maui is also a trustee and from our tribe, Whakatohea as well. And to you also, Jeanette, thank you all for your help and guidance and getting us set up. So because we're really new to all of this, the labels, but also I think in particular looking at what, the purpose of trying to collaborate with institutions and even within ourselves as a tribe, to help protect our taonga, our archives, our records, our data, our sovereignty, I guess, in terms of what we have created as a tribe, is kind of new to us. So it has been a learning journey. And so we wanted to start off by really investigating for ourselves what that actually means to create the TK labels for Whakatohea. So we've incorporated some training programs to teach our tribe, and we've started off by integrating them into one of our digital technology programs that we run for our young people. And during the process, I guess we've also learned a lot about IP, intellectual property for ourselves, how that actually sits for us here in New Zealand, and where all of our special taonga, our archives actually sit throughout the country and in what institutions. We have a desire to establish a Whakatohea digital library, so we're working with the University of Waikato to help create this digital library as a storage platform, I guess, for any of our digital archives that we can bring back or repatriate from some of those institutions, or even have copies of those archives that we can store within our own library. So Rangi Mātie's role, I guess, is to help work with the university to create that digital library so that it's suitable for what we want to create here. And as a part of that process, it's understanding and learning about each of the labels that have been created. And thank you to all the tribes that have already gone down that pathway in creating the labels. So we're at the back end trying to understand what they actually mean for us. And a part of the learning package, I guess, is our team are creating a learning book. For a wānanga, a workshop that we're going to be running in a few weeks' time with our tribe. So we're inviting our tribal members to come together to learn about the labels so that we can collectively work on applying the labels to the archives, the taonga, the documents that we retrieve and that we store within our own library. So it's a long process for us, and it's been a very hectic learning process as well. But I think one that's been very valuable for us as a tribe to understand, I guess, the things that we need to protect for us and our future. So I'm just going to quickly ask if my team would like to share anything else. Anita, Courtney, or Rangi? Good.
Kia ora, everybody. Can you hear me? I've got my boy's gaming piece on. I don't know if it works. Cool. He came in earlier trying to take it off me. But anyway, I digress. I just want to say thank you for changing legislation. Like, that is incredible. Getting the I'm writing down all your stories so that we can tell these stories to our iwi, our tribe, because being able to illustrate how other tribes have used it will just make a massive impact in terms of not just getting them on board, but hopefully illustrating how amazing this tool can be. So thank you so much for your stories. Like, you're getting the government to come and ask you for permission in Australia. Like, what the? That is just out the gate. And what was the other one? Oh, and the MOUs, like the process that you've used, that will be so helpful to us in terms of like building relationships with institutions, because a lot of our tribal or our heritage materials are not with us. They sit somewhere else, and like in some ways we don't even know to what extent that our information and all our materials are out there. So just thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your stories, because these will be so impactful when we go to our tribe, which is like next month. And because stories are very powerful, it helps our people connect to everything, pretty much. Storytelling is how we all share our history. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much. Rangs is actually creating some really cool material. So I said that's all I want to say, but I'm lying. So when we talked about how are we going to do this with our iwi, how are we going to illustrate what the labels can mean, we decided to create materials that our kids, so if we explained it to our kids, they would understand, because if we can get to that level, then everybody can understand. We tried to really take the high contextual language out and just chunk it down to like just easy to understand information. So Langs, I'm going to hand it over to you, bro, because the stuff that you created is like mean. All right, that's me. Kia ora. Wait,
there's stable here, so but we'll make do. Yeah, kia ora, morena. I'm the other half to Courtney. We are currently working on an activity book, and we created what is it, like a mascot, and we've named him Tika, which actually the full name to Digitech is Te Ihi Kāroa, Digitech. So Tika is the acronym for Te Ihi Kāroa. We created this robot, and we've utilised him as a mascot to reach our tamariki. And he has the screen on his body, and we created it so that every single label is shown on this particular screen. And so we turned it into a colouring book, and so we associated the words, the English words. We're also yet to add our language, the Māori language, to this. And then at the same time, we've created word finds and crosswords, utilising all the information, and then getting people to, it's basically, we've created it all into a game, basically, so that it helps people to understand it a little bit more better, and how you can link the meaning to the label, to the name, to the image. And yeah, we're kind of at a space where we just want to, with our wānanga coming up, we thought it would be a great idea, because we're still learning the labels, that what if our people came to this wānanga and we had resources to give them, and that way they're customizing, because we haven't quite fully finished that process yet here in Whakatohea. So we are creating a document that they can customize alongside us, and that it has all the necessary information for them to understand just the English, the image, the Te Reo Māori, and within Whakatohea we've added sign language, and so it's just giving them access to everything that we have, but being able to give it to them in a way that makes it memorable and makes it long lasting. So yeah, we're kind of in the process of doing all of that at the moment. It's a very exciting process, but at the same time, it's very long. And so we've only been in this for, I think, maybe the last year or so. But yeah, we really appreciate all the hard work that you guys have already done and that you guys are doing, because you guys are basically paving the way for us. And yeah, we're more than open to share our resources as well, because we're still realizing even more so with every hui that we get on just how massive this project is. So yeah, that's all I'm going to share. Yeah.
Kapai, thank you, Rangi. Just to finish off, thank you again, everybody. I think, as you might have seen, also, Rangi talking about the 3 different languages. Sign language has actually become quite an integral part of our learning, as well as our own Māori language. So part of the process is for us to whakatohea eyes, or put a whakatohea lens on the TK labels. So it's a better use for us. So yeah, the 3 languages, Te Reo Māori, sign language, as well as English, is a great way for us to actually teach, to learn, to help absorb the whole process of the TK levels and how, what it actually means for us to go forward. So, and just finally, congratulations on the Local Context Hub. It's been great just working alongside you and providing our feedback as well to get the site up and running. So, kia ora tātou, ngā mihi atu kia koe.
Miigwech, kia ora, my relatives. Amazing presentation, and acknowledging, the iwi, the tribes that have been working and journeying with local context for a while. But to have you on board is re-inspiring. And as you invite us to climb into your waka, you're paddling us into new territories, and territories where we're able to think about our relatives who are hearing or sight challenged. So when it comes to the labels, making them accessible to all. So miigwech for that beautiful, gentle reminder and inspiring us with your new visions on how to adapt TK labels and local context into your tribe. So that brings us to the Local Context Hub demonstration, and this day has been eagerly anticipated by many, and I'm sure there have been many coffees and teas that have been enjoyed getting to this point with all of our tech people working on this project, and those that are developing the relationships with all the beta testers. So we're going to hear from 2 of our amazing team members. Corey and Felicia are going to provide us with a demonstration of the Local Context Hub.
Thanks, Shannon, for that wonderful introduction. Haku, everyone. I'm Felicia Garcia. I'm Somali Shumash, so I'm originally from Southern California, but I'm really lucky to live in Tewa Territory, or Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I've been working with Corey to facilitate some beta testing of the hub. And it's really wonderful to see so many folks that we've worked with in the beta testing process. And so I'll pass it off to Corey, and then we'll get started.
Hello, kia ora. It's really great to be here with you all with so many familiar faces and names, as well as some new ones. My name is Corey Rowe. I have been doing the beta testing with Felicia, and I am coming to you from the Mohegan, Paugussett, and Wappinger territories in Western Connecticut. And I think Felicia is going to kick us off. If you please forgive us, we're going to go back and forth a little bit with sharing our screen, but please feel free to leave some questions in the chat for us too.
All right, so to start, I'll walk you all through the registration process. And I'm recovering from a cold right now, so please forgive me if I have to mute or turn off my camera and Corey takes over. So here we are at the welcome or the sign-in page of the Local Context Hub. And I already have a profile on here, but I'm going to create a new one here so that everyone can see the full registration process. So I'm going to click on the register button. And then let's pick a username. Okay, then we have some terms and conditions and data sovereignty agreement, which I'll allow you all to investigate on your own, but those are important features of the hub. So I'm going to click that I agree that I'm not a robot, and continue. All right, so I'm gonna head into my email here and just verify my account. And I'll spare you all the view of my inbox, which is full of spam. Let's see, I'm going to check my spam folder, make sure that the verification email didn't end up there. No.
Well, I will check on the back end.
Okay, sorry.
I know Deanna's here too, but I will.
I'm already on the page. I can just activate your account.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, you should be able to log in now.
Okay. So I'll just sign in and then we'll create a community together. Okay, perfect. So it just took us back to the personal profile creation steps. So my name, I'm just gonna put beta tester. My affiliation will be local context. I'm gonna say Santa Fe. Okay. Continue. And so there are a couple of different account types here. There's the community account, which is for Indigenous groups who are able to customize and apply labels. There's the institution account, which is more for cultural or resource institutions who are able to create projects and apply notices, and so they can work with communities to apply a label. And then there's a researcher account, which is for an individual who is either affiliated with an institution or independent, and they also can create projects and notices and work with communities to apply labels. And so Corey will show you around the institution account a little later, but I'm going to create a community account. So I'm just going to call it Southwest Community since this is a test. And then this is just asking for what the responsible community entity is. So this could be like the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, archive, but I'm going to say it's the museum. Let's say it's in New Mexico where I'm based. And then I'm going to leave this description blank for now, but this is a great space to self-describe your community. And then we added this community confirmation step because we want the local context hub to be really collaborative and to make sure that folks have the appropriate permission to create an account on behalf of their community. And so this is just asking for either a support document saying that it's confirming that it's okay to establish this account on behalf of the community, or I can put the contact name of someone else in the community. And so I'm just going to put myself here and my other email. Great. So this is the home page. I'm just going to accept these cookies down here to get this banner to go away. And my cat just joined our Zoom here. So this is the dashboard. Here's the community that I created. And I'm just going to turn it over to Corey now, who is going to show you the registry here and ask to join the Southwest community.
Great. So I think it should be added because I just accepted it, Tiana. So I'm just going to refresh, and we see here that the community has been added to the registry along with all the other accounts that are test accounts. And so if you would like to join a community or an institution account, you can just press this button, send request to join, and then that will be sent to whoever is in charge of the account, in this case, Felicia. And I'm going to hand it back over to Felicia to show that.
All right, so we're back on the community page. Let's see, just refreshing here so that you can see Corey's request.
Felicia, it's going to be in your profile, sorry.
Oh, thank you, Dan. There we go. Okay, and so there are a couple of different roles that are available, and I will go over those in the community page in just a couple minutes here, but I'm going to give Corey admin access for now. Perfect. Okay, and so now we'll go into the community page and I'll give you a tour. So we can click on this. And so you already saw I clicked on the notifications up here, and so we'll get to see what a notification looks like once we do a practice project. We can also go into the settings up here on the top right, and we can add that description that I didn't add during the registration process, or edit any of this other information about the community. We can also choose an image. Let's see, we'll do that one for our community profile. There we go. So I'm going to save it. And then go back to the projects tab. And so we'll go over each of the projects, labels, and members tab in just a moment. Up at the top of the screen, we also have a count of all of the labels that have been customized by our community. So we don't have any labels just yet, but we'll customize one together. We don't have any notices either or connections. So let's see. And so let's customize a label to start. So I'll go to the labels tab here. So on the hub, we have the traditional knowledge and biocultural labels. The customized labels will show up here, but we also have a drop-down menu with all of the labels that are available to be customized. There's a link here as well that'll go out to the local context website if you'd like to learn more about the labels. They're organized by these are provenance labels, protocol labels, permissions labels, and then the biocultural labels are organized in that same way. So you can see provenance, protocol, and permission labels. And if you click on one, it'll give you some more information about it below, such as why you would use this label, and then some template text. And so I'm going to select the traditional knowledge attribution label and customize it for the Southwest community. Okay, and so we can edit the template text here. We can also create a customized name. We can translate it to a different language and just write whatever language that is in the box here and then have the translated text below. Let's see, I'm going to leave the template text because I think it's fine. And then I'll just select save as draft. Let's see, give a chat. And so, as I mentioned, the hub is really collaborative. And so for the community accounts, they're designed so that at least 2 members have to be involved with the label customization process. And so here's the label I selected to customize. As you can see, it's grayed out and has this asterisk here that says waiting for approval. And so that approval doesn't come from local context admins, that comes from another member of the community. And so since Corey was added to the Southwest community, she can go in and approve this label to be applied to projects. And so I will just turn it over to Corey to show that.
I think watching the time, want to be very conscious of everybody's time. I think we're going to transition maybe to the next part of the meeting, but we really look forward to showing you all around the hub and getting into how to use all the different parts of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Oh, miigwech. Thank you, Corey and Felicia. At this time, I'd like to have a few members of our amazing project team introduce themselves, because as we launch the hub and move forward with scaling and providing opportunity for more communities, institutions to register and sign on and begin to use it, we want to acknowledge those that are going to be points of contact and working on to advance the project in the coming months. So we're going to start with Dr. Jeanette.
Kia ora no tātou. Thank you, Corey and Felicia and Shannon. So I'm the Local Context Program Lead in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Pukina lands, and here to help in any way with the Local Context Hub and the Local Context website, the support at localcontext.org. There's many questions around the hub. Please come into that email address, but I've also put in there the link to the Local Context Indigenous Communities Working Group. Would love to see you in there also. Kia ora, Shannon. Thank you.
All right, kia ora miigwech. Ali Spangler.
Hi, I'm Allie Spangler. I am in Brooklyn right now, which is Lenape territory, and I'm the Local Context Institutional Implementation and Metadata Lead. So I've been doing a lot of research around metadata associated with the Local Context Hub. And thanks for that presentation, Felicia and Corey. It was beautiful.
Miigwech, Ali, and now Lori.
Sorry about that. Lori Hack, I am working on governance and business model for sustaining the Local Context Hub and Local Context Organization. I am based kind of in the middle of several communities here in northern Wisconsin, including the Oneida, Potawatomi, and Menominee.
All right, I think that rounds out our team that's on here that's going to continue working on the project moving forward. So at this time, we'd like to unveil an amazing video that features our fearless leaders and many voices, Indigenous voices that have helped to shape the Local Context project and have inspired countless others around the world. So I'm going to turn this over to our videographer, Mr. Andreas Burgess, to introduce this video.
Hey everybody, I'll keep this real brief. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for all the work you've done on this project, and as I've sort of learned a little bit about it to help tell the story visually, it's been very, very inspiring, and I just want to thank everyone for all the hard work you've done. Wanted to also just say it's nice to see some of the faces that I've seen names and emails and such, and particularly wanted to just say what an honor it was to be on Passamaquoddy homelands with Donald and Dwayne. And I will let the video do the rest of the talking.
The archive is a pretty curious place in the sense of like what it's presumed to do and who it's presumed to do certain things for. And for the communities that I've worked for, basically I saw the archive radically fail them. Indigenous communities didn't have any control over their cultural heritage, their histories, their family photographs. It was all held within institutions, and not only did communities not have control over that, they didn't have access to it. I mean, so you've got these histories of extraction and of deliberate theft, but you have a really real, tangible, practical problem for communities in relationship to how do they get control of their cultural material back.
One of the challenges that's emerged in this context is really how you think about intellectual property and what does it mean to own cultural heritage, what does it mean to own traditional knowledge, if that sort of thing is even possible.
The law doesn't care about the content. That's part of the challenge, that's why it doesn't work very well. It can only see things through a property lens.
There's a sort of a vagary in the system where because traditional knowledge has accumulated over time, it's not subject to the rules which allow an intellectual property to be granted over it. But as other researchers come in and start to write about those communities and write about their knowledges, then they can assert copyright over that material. And so you end up in a situation where outsiders, researchers, institutions hold the copyright over communities' knowledge.
At a legal end, you can't retroactively go and fix some of these problems, right? They're persistent and they're in many ways permanent over decades. What else could you do that could mark that material differently, that could bring cultural authority back into the record, and that could then allow communities to have different kinds of relationships around how that material could be used into the future?
Other Native groups started talking about Indigenous knowledge labels, and I said that's the way to go. That's the way it should have been in the very beginning.
The traditional knowledge labels, or the TK labels, are really digital tags that can sit alongside the digital assets or the knowledge. So as that knowledge is circulating around the world, those tags can be sitting there alongside to guide what appropriate behavior looks like.
Native tribes are starting to utilize it because it gives us more control over our songs, over our cultural material.
The Passamaquoddy wax cylinder recordings were made in Calais, Maine in March 1890.
These are songs from our ancestors that haven't been heard for 120, 130 years.
As a matter of fact, the first time I actually listened to the wax cylinders, it really, I was very, very emotional.
These songs were sitting in an archive waiting for us, and the right moment that they came was the right moment that we needed them.
The Library of Congress contacted us about the possibility of using the labels for the Passamaquoddy wax cylinder recordings. The record as it existed prior to doing this work was an impoverished one. We know kind of nothing. And then Once you engage with the communities about that, it just opens up.
This is where the excitement begins. This is where we start getting excited.
We'd play maybe a sentence at a time, and then a word at a time.
I could feel the spirit, you know, through these songs, and I just felt a real deep connection.
The process of the labeling ran kind of in a parallel way. It was like both uncovering what the sound on the recordings was and then thinking about where can cultural authority from the Passamaquoddy rest with these recordings and how can that be kind of woven back in.
Yoneha, 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 Yoneha.
It helps us to take possession of that song back instead of somebody interpreting what that song is and what it means.
What now exists in the Library of Congress is an updated record with an enormous amount of traditional knowledge that Passamaquoddy have shared, as well as 3 labels that are really visible and as close to the content as possible. So that's kind of the public-facing part of the record now. But what sits behind that is the digital infrastructure itself. Digital infrastructures are not neutral. Digital infrastructures carry the bias of all the other systematic frameworks around them. And when we start adding Indigenous names and Indigenous protocols and Indigenous rules and Indigenous permissions, we find out there's not a field for that. So we had to create a new field.
If you start to create the infrastructure that enables this sort of provenance information to be done, then you start to encourage and support researchers that want to do the right thing to do the right thing. In the context of genetic resources, you're in a very similar situation.
How do we create a set of labels that can deal with the biocultural information that is coming out of Indigenous community contexts?
In most places around the world, when you think about genetic resources, what gives Indigenous communities rights in relation to them is the associated traditional knowledge. In terms of equity and in terms of benefit sharing, those things become increasingly hard to do if the right sort of provenance information isn't collected at the point where the projects are done.
That means that the 2nd and 3rd user, or the 4th and 5th users, have no information about where this data has come from.
What the label does is it creates a really clear pathway for that next user back to the source community so that they can then talk about what appropriate use, what appropriate benefit sharing looks like. When I'm thinking about how the application of the labels works within my community, Whakatohia, we've engaged in it in part because we've got interests in the marine space. We know there's a difference between the mussels which we catch and grow locally and the ones that we bring in from other places and grow on there. We've joined up with a research group and they're going to gene sequence not only the mussels that are on our farm, but the ones that are collected in recreational sites all along the coast. When the gene sequence for the mussel is generated, we'll attach the biocultural labels to that, so then that data is subject to the conditions we put in place through the use of the BC labels.
What's really exciting about the biocultural labels is that they start to allow us to scale this work in a different kind of way.
When you're dealing with collections of biospecimens that number in the thousands and tens of thousands, you know, these collections have taken a long time to put together and it will take a long time to correct this sort of missing provenance information. But at least we're creating space for that to happen.
as we've kind of moved the project into different kinds of spaces, we've understood that researchers need particular tools and institutions need particular tools. And the notices are a system that allow institutions to mark records as well as to kind of mark their intent to engage around this work.
The work of the researcher and institution is to say there are Indigenous interests here, and we're making sure that those interests are transparent to other users, and that's where the use of the labels and the ability of the communities themselves to say these are the right labels for this context and these are what they mean to us.
One of the most powerful things that we've experienced as a community is gifts coming back from our ancestors.
If we think about the traditional knowledge that's being shared as a gift and what the essence of that is and how that's maintained, and then the sorts of protocols that can be used to ensure that it's used in the right sort of way, that's what we see the labels sort of helping us do.
We are still here. It's amazing.
Nishin. Amazing video. And acknowledging Molly Neptune Parker-Ba for her amazing work and working so tirelessly to listen to the language and to adapt the language and to continually be an inspiration. So at this time, we'd also like to acknowledge a few other team members, part of our technology team, part of the team that helped to create the hub. Those are the ones who drank the Monsters and Red Bulls and were able to piece all of this together in their scientific brains and to do the coding and to do the research and the work for the hub to work for our people and for the institutions to reciprocate and to assist us in bringing back our material. So I want to make sure that we acknowledge those team members. If they could introduce themselves quickly. We've got Renee.
Kia ora tata katoa, he iri tēnei ngō Ngāti Tara, Ngāti Naho, Ngāti Hineru hoki. Ko Renee Wāore tōku ingoa. He mahi ana hau ki IDEA. So I work at IDEA. I am a user experience designer there. I have been helping support the design and the experience for the local context hub. I really hope you enjoy it. This has been an amazing hui to be a part of, and I can't wait for you guys to use it. Kia ora.
Miigwech Renee. John.
Hi, I'm John Deck. I work with BioCode LLC. I'm located here in Eugene, Oregon. And the technical architect worked with Jane and Maui to design the system.
And Diana.
Hi, I'm Diana. I am the developer for the hub. I'm in Eugene, Oregon also, and I have been catching bugs as the demo went on, so the work never ends, really. So super exciting project. I'm really happy and a little anxious that it's launched. And there are no monsters involved. That's a little too much sugar. It's a lot of coffee. Thank you.
Coffee is good. Let's give them a round of applause, and in our beautiful, good way, all of the amazing minds that came together to code and to sequence and to just envision and bring the hub into our reality. So miigwech for all of your work. We're going to turn now to another inspiring individual who we turn to in the protections of our songs and our languages, our spirituality. So we're going to ask Mr. Dwayne Toma and family to share a Passamaquoddy song as we begin to round out our evening together.
Iwiliwin, Dwayne Toma Deliwiz, Nuje Auzipaik, Beskadamukad. My name is Dwayne Toma from the Passamaquoddy tribe, the people of the dawn, known for people who spear pollock. Before I get started, I just want to take a moment of silence to think about our ancestors who were just returned back to the earth. We just returned 110 of our ancestors. And we did that this past weekend. Some of them were dated back 6,500 years. So I wanted to take this time to think about our ancestors, and they have returned back to the earth. The song that I'm about to share with you is a gathering song. It's an 1890 wax cylinder song that we've been working on. And I've had the honor and privilege of working with Donald Sucktomer, tribal historian, and I've been able to transcribe these songs. And this particular song is a gathering song. It brings people together to be able to solve common problems and to be able to carry out ceremonies that once would have been lost. Nehe, una gaulo. See that Alago Mogig to all my relations.
Oh, miigwech, Dwayne, miigwech.
And I'd like to thank each and every one of you for giving me your time today. And it's really an honor to share these ancestral songs, very, very old songs. So it's really an honor to me from the people of the dawn to share the songs and stories of our people. So thank you very much. Chi Wuli Win.
Oh, miigwech, Dwayne. Now we're going to hear for, and let's give our beautiful attention to Donald Saktoma, who is going to provide the words on our behalf to the Creator, to creation, to close out our evening.
Deliveries Donald Saktoma, Bestamu God Nil. Nil Nulbin, Naga Diddly Damin, Bugulagan, Nil Giddy Wektaha, Wayasis. Nil Nulbin, Naga Diddly Damin, Bugulagan, Naga Askunigas, Chinaptahige, Naga Chibella, Naga Ablosomwas, Chinaptahige. So I think this is a great project with the songs that came back to us. The ancestors followed this. It's like the ancestors followed the songs back to our people. And as Dwayne mentioned earlier, we did have a big ceremony, and we had 110 ancestors that we put back into the earth. And it's when we take control of our destiny, everything falls in place. This is powerful, and this project is part of our destiny. Thank you.
Miigwech, Donald. Miigwech for offering those prayers, inspirations for us. And it is a destiny. And it's what our ancestors hoped for us, because they knew there would be a time when we would be separated from our songs, our ceremonies, from our ancestral belongings and inheritances. But they also knew a time where it would come back, and we would retrieve it, and we would take it back. And this project is helping us to do that. And it's moving forward because of you, Donald, because of James, because of our new relatives over in Aotearoa and Tasmania and Australia. And it's like the old days when we would counsel and meet together to form alliances. This is a global alliance where we're going to re-inspire and inspire one another to take back what was ours, either through repatriation physically or through the digital divide. We're going to cross it. And the local context hub is helping us to build the bridge and to shorten the gap for us to access collections, especially digital collections. So miigwech to everyone for this evening, for sharing. Miigwech to all those who shared on the local context community label dialogue. And as we move forward, in my language, we tell one another, Ayang Guamazin. Ayang Guamazin in my language means be determined, be vigilant, but also be careful on your path to what you seek. So in that, we say Ayang Guamazin to each and every one of you. Stay strong, stay determined, and let's continue to advance our work together and inspire one another to be the best that we can be as we honor our ancestors in our communities. And I don't know if Maui or Jane wanted to say a few words, but to celebrate this incredible achievement that many voices and minds have contributed to over the years. Feels amazingly good right now.
Kia ora, Shannon. Look, I already put a little post in the thing just saying ngā mihi mai aho kia koutou katoa. You know, thank you to all of those that were able to contribute today and share their stories, and thanks to everyone else that has come and joined us and shared the space with us today. So kia ora koutou. Go well. Have a great day.
Miigwech, everyone, and find the Local Context Facebook page. There'll be updates and videos, testimonials, information on trainings and opportunities that will be coming in the near future. So miigwech, everyone, and Yangwa Mazin. It was great to share hearts and